customers succeed, matching business problems to technical solutions and seeing how well those align, and then helping solve those real world problems. I'm going to throw up a deck, but I am not a huge deck person, so we won't stay on that very long. Just do a brief introduction, especially on this slide, which this is one of my all-time favorite shows. If there's any Big Bang Theory fans here, we've been watching Young Sheldon almost every night, and he's East Texas, so somewhat relatable to our audience today. I'm going to skip that because it's a little trippy to sit there and watch him spin around in circles too long. My company is a Salesforce data management company. So we are a Salesforce only shop. And what we facilitate is Salesforce data autonomy. So giving Salesforce customers the ability to have their Salesforce data external to Salesforce where they can actually use that data. I had a couple of real world examples for admins, but we're going to skip that since we're in the developer space. So what that practically means and what we'll actually look at today. And I do have a little helper back here too. If you hear that, he's 3 and he likes to help me. So he's here.
Nice.
Yeah. He works with me a lot. Now he's going to shred my husband's bills. So 1 second, let me rescue that. All right. You cannot shred that, honey. You may not. No, you may not. I know. We're not going to light the candle. You can come sit on my lap, but you have to listen because Mom is talking. You may sit and say hi. All right. So one of the companies we work with is a credit card company, and they're large. They're a credit card you'd have in your wallet. They have around 80 Salesforce developer teams. So something we helped them do was stop sharing full copy sandboxes and actually make those Salesforce dev orgs, their Scratch orgs or Dev Pro orgs, arenas where their developers can work so that every developer can work in their own private environment. And of course, have those seeded with relevant, but also masked production data. Now that was one of the topics we were going to talk about today. And the other one is the ability to then take Salesforce data out of the Force platform, bring it into your own database in near real time so that you're able to do all kinds of analytics and reporting. I'm sure nobody on this call has ever ran into trouble with running native reports in Salesforce. Get all the information you want. You can ask any question you want in Salesforce natively. Or has anybody actually ran into a problem within Salesforce?
With native reporting limitations, like when you have, timeout errors, things like that,
Yeah. Most people do. So that's why we help customers get their Salesforce data into their own data centers. So what Capstorm does very high level, and I'll just pick up one more slide, then we can go into a demo. We'll actually go to this one's a little bit nicer. This little guy's making so much trouble. Sorry about that. He had to stay home with me sick today, so he is now full of tons of energy. So on a high level, it's incremental replication from Salesforce of your data, your metadata, and your structure. So getting your replica of your Salesforce in your own relational database, be that in AWS, in GCP, in Azure, or on-premise. With a mirror image of Salesforce in your data center, you can then run reporting directly from that database within 3 minutes of what your live production users are doing. And as Indina said, please come off mute and interact. Otherwise, this will be boring and very short. You can also, of course, then integrate all kinds of data sources with your Salesforce data. I have a lot of customers that are doing this where they have ERP systems, they have separate, say, financial systems. They're integrating that data with Capstorm bringing in Salesforce so they can then go directly to Tableau with a full picture of their company for enhanced analytics. Now on the developer side, going the other direction, taking an incremental targeted data set from Salesforce and pushing that into your Salesforce developer environment. So you can have a selection of cases or accounts or all that relationships in an environment you can actually work with. Any questions for me? And then we'll just do demo. Is this resonating? Is this interesting? Are you falling asleep?
This is good. But did you say metadata also? Are you using the metadata API and like which APIs are you using to extract the data, like bulk?
Great question. So by default, we actually use SOAP or REST on the data side. Now you can use bulk if you want to, but we found the wall time, so the time you actually have to wait, has been much faster if we use SOAP or REST, particularly with parallel threads. And for metadata, yes, we use the metadata API to extract the metadata.
Have had a challenge with wait, how many millions of records are you pulling every 3 minutes, would you say, for your largest clients?
Oh goodness. For my largest clients, we don't actually see their data. So that's the difficult part. We pull it from Salesforce right to their database without seeing their data. Now, of course, you are going to have limitations on how fast you can run just based on the amount of time it takes to query Salesforce. But that is limited by how fast your internet speed is. And of course, you can run, say you wanted to do a mammoth org and do incrementals, you'd likely want to run a couple different parallel threads and maybe even a couple different users, depending upon what you wanted to do. I know that's not a direct answer. The straight answer is I don't know exactly how many our biggest customers do. I can tell you your limiting factors though, and that's the speed at which you can get the data out of Salesforce, which is typically your internet connection. We have ran fast enough that we were detected, our application was detected by Salesforce as an, what they call it, a DDoS attack, an attack on their architecture. And they just, now of course they didn't know it was us, which is coming from their customers' API calls. So they started terminating those connections into their infrastructure. So it's how fast your internet speed is and then how fast you can write to the database. Good question. Who asked that? I'm going to put your name down and give you a point for the drawing of the $100 to the Swag Store.
This is JJ.
JJ, all right. JJ, 1 point, actually 2 points for you for asking 2 questions. That's perfect. I actually think I should give you 5 because you stumped me. That's the rule. You stump me, you get 5 entries. So now you have 6. Your odds are good.
Sweet.
Excellent. Anything else? Then we can do that, how this actually works.
I have a question. This is Melissa. I have a question about a use case scenario. So with like the metadata being copied over, basically, so you'd be able to pretty much refresh a sandbox without refreshing a sandbox, right? In a way.
In a way, yeah. I have customers that do use this to keep that full copy sandbox in really close proximity with production, particularly on the data side. They're able to do incremental pushes.
Mm-hmm.
On the metadata side, though, the typical recommendation we would give would be to refresh from Salesforce and then flush down the most recent copy of your metadata.
Got it. Okay.
Absolutely. Anything else? All right. Especially when we're doing a developer session, I know the slide approach, the talking stuff is not as exciting as the actual practical. Show me that this thing actually works in the real world. This is going to be the comedy of errors developer group because I have a dog barking, I got a kid messing with who knows what. So appreciate your patience.
I mean, I was going to say you're lucky I'm on mute because my dog's now barking at your dog. So, you know.
I tell you, real life,
Yeah.
It's a beast, isn't it?
Yeah, we know it's not staged. Everything's happening real time.
Oh yeah, and even this demo, let's hopefully everything connects. All right, so this is what extraction looks like. There's 2 connection points. Salesforce on my left-hand side, database on my right. From here, I can say start. We're going to connect to Salesforce, and then we're going to start pulling data, table for table, field for field, into my database. And this is designed to be a mirror of Salesforce. So account object in Salesforce equals account table in the database, so on and so forth, so that you can utilize this for your analytics and data fabric integration. And we're incremental, so I could kill this and then start it again. It's going to pick up where it left off. And we could talk about extraction for a while, because there's a lot I can do in here. Like I can do record snapshotting. I can add some field history, which is beyond those 20 fields per object. I could track the history of pretty much every field in my org if I wanted to. Or I could segment my extraction job and say, for this job, I only want to pull these tables. But usually in the DevOps world, Restore is a bit more exciting, talking about how to get data from somewhere, so from a database up to Salesforce, and reconnect all those relationships. Any questions for me while we just have this thing running?
How long, Rebecca, does it take if you're adding new fields? So like if you're adding new fields to accounts or leads, or custom object, how long does Capstorm take to pick it up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's the first step of extraction. So because it's incremental, the first thing it will do is adjust your schema. So if you've added a new custom object, change a field definition, add a new managed package, the first thing that happens is to replicate down those schema changes, and then of course populate the table with any data. This thing's going to run really slow because it's running on an internet connection that has two things Netflix going at the same time at my house.
And does it always, oh, sorry, go ahead, Gigi.
No, go.
No, I was just going to say, like, for example, if you're adding a new package, do you always have to copy over everything, or can you do exclusions of what you're copying?
Oh, of course. I can go in here and target what I specifically want. I could target this on a field level if I wanted to. The common way to do it is on an object level. So I could say for this particular extraction job, I want, say maybe I want lead, maybe I want opportunity. I could type in, or I could click and do a more drag and drop method. This is typically designed because a lot of our customers use this for analytics and for disaster recovery, and you want different configurations for both. Like, do you care about deleted records in your analytics database? Maybe, but you definitely do if you're doing it for continuity purposes. Yeah. Great question. Did I answer it all the way for you, Nadina?
You did.
Awesome.
JJ asked your question. I'm sure it's more interesting.
I was going the same route, actually. Yes.
All right.
And never mind.
And Lena asks, is it a substitute to own backup? Yes, we are used for Salesforce disaster recovery. Because we are enablement, actual data enablement company, disaster recovery is a portion of what our customers do, but it's not all of it. The big difference is because the data is living somewhere that our customers actually own and control, they can use the data, and of course they can run backup verification, because you know it works if you're using it for operational reporting.
Thank you. Yeah, that helps.
All right. Anything else on extraction? Then we'll talk about recovery or restore.
I see you're running a Windows program. Is there a Mac program?
Who asked that one? I'm going to put your name down.
Zachary Banks.
Zachary. All right. Yep. It will work on Windows, Mac, or Linux. So it's operating system agnostic. One of our CIO ran it on a Raspberry Pi one time to see if he could. One Saturday afternoon. So yeah, you can run on any operating system that you want. Mommy. Anything else? Thanks for asking questions, by the way. It's way more fun.
How does this work against, say, like a non-transactional database, like maybe like a Redshift in Amazon, or like a CDP, where it wants more of a updated on a schedule?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we support the major relational databases. So Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres. But I will say Safe Harbor, Redshift, Snowflake, BigQuery are coming. And they're coming because our customers have asked for them. We're not going to recommend them for disaster recovery as a database type, but for analytics, absolutely. Was that Justin? Said that. All right, Justin, another point for you. All right. Great question. Were you thinking of anything in particular, or was it more just how does that work? Does it do it?
That's generally how the company I work for now, that's what they do for their long-term data storage is they dump everything into an S3 bucket and then load it on a schedule to either Redshift or segment.io.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, we did not do directly to S3. And I know there were some technical reasons why. I think it had to do with indexing. But you can't ask me that because I'm going to have no clue why.
Yeah, we do it the really lazy way. We just transform it basically into JSON and then just put it into a giant file.
Got it. Well, hopefully, I really hope we never have to put it back into Salesforce because that sounds like it could be a little complex.
No, that's data engineering. That's their problem.
Yeah, I know, get it. All right. Not my problem is a good answer. All right. Are we ready to take a look at restore and what that looks like?
Yes.
All right. Pop open a different UI. Let's grab it. Here we go. Now for restore, I can start at a couple different points. If I'm creating with the extraction, if I'm doing record snapshotting and creating either a custom one or I'm using a default point in time archive, I can start my extraction point for disaster recovery with I want to restore from this date, this time. Common, of course, if you're doing that DR operation. But for DevOps, I'm going to go directly to that database because I'm going to restore and push to my sandbox what the most recent thing is. And I want a slice of that targeted data. Let's see. Someone give me an object. Any object will work. If you don't give me one, I'll use a count, which works too, but you can start anywhere.
Contact, order, anything.
Order. Oh, that would be interesting.
Okay.
So let's see if I have orders in here. Oh, all right. No luck. Let's see if I've got it yet.
Case.
What?
Cases.
Case. I know I have cases in here. I'm operating off a very tiny little database that lives on my Postgres on my laptop, so there's not a ton of data in there.
I guess I know my out-of-the-box objects.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So we're going to do case. Case is great. Which cases do we want? Do we have a record type maybe? Maybe we're doing a project and we want to pull cases by some sort of criteria. And frankly, I don't think I even have any record types in here. This is such a tiny little database. I can drag and drop. It's my keyboard, yeah. I can drag and drop and filter based off whatever I want. So maybe I have database and I want to do contains, I don't know, something or another. However, I want to identify the data that I want to push into my dev org. Now, many on this team could probably write SQL. I couldn't to save my life, so I'm not even going to try. Or I could restore based off an ID. Any ID that I have in my org. But for today, I'm just going to go ahead and put random. I want a random 100 cases. All right, next up, I can tweak what I want to do for my reference fields. Now for cases, I'm going to set that with accounts. I'm just going to say to create the account because I know for a dev org, I have no accounts there because I'm starting with an empty environment. So I'm pushing the case, the account's not there. I'll go ahead and have it created. Say I want to create my contacts, and I think I'll create parent cases too, if they happen to be there. All right, my fields are all there by default. Let's see, whoever picked case, do you have any sensitive data in case? Anything that you might not want in a sandbox? You want masked?
Maybe like, the address or email of the of the contact, I guess.
Address or email, I absolutely would. And of course, given that this is a dev org, I don't have much there. Let's take email address. Let's make it let's see here. What am I going to do it? I'll email scramble it. I want something that looks like an email, but isn't actually an email. So it's going to say change maybe Rebecca@capstorm.com to some random name at somerandomname.com. It's going to keep the same format, keep the same structure, but it's going to give you junk data. Save that. All right. This is the part I get the most excited about because it's not about cases. Because cases are great, but cases are not that difficult. I can data load cases. But I want the case, I want the case attachments, I want the solutions, I want the comments and the contact requests and some grandchildren. I want to really build out this data structure. I might even want all of it. Click a button here. I want all levels of relationship to sit underneath case.
How deep of a relationship can you go?
Deep as I want. Let's go to account. We'll make it even a little bit more complex. I'm going to switch object and click on the account object. I click on related lists and grab everything. So these are only for the accounts that are referenced by the cases, but I said go all the way down on relationship. Now, of course, I could pick. I could say I want to go 1, 2, 3, 5, or 7 levels, or I could go all. And of course, this is granular. So say I have, let's see, cases, maybe task. Maybe task in there. Because that table is usually pretty big. So say I'm doing this for store. I know my dev environment's not that big. I can limit on a global level. I only want, say, 500 maximum records per any one object. Or I could go in and say task is pretty big for me. I'm only going to say I want 30 total in this set of data. Everyone with me so far? Any questions? I know we've flown through something really complex really fast.
I guess you might be getting to this, but can you create templates to where you can automatically seed those dev boxes with, the same kind of sets of data each time?
Oh, absolutely. I can do it in a couple different ways. I can do the simple file save as. Use this structure again and again and again. I'm not guaranteed to get the same cases that way, so I could go in here where I started and give it a seed value, say 1, and then I'd be guaranteed to get the same data set every time.
Okay.
One second. Think of amazing questions while I put on another Peppa Pig. I'll be right back. Yes, everyone loves Peppa Pig. I bet everybody on this call loves Peppa Pig as much as you.
I have a question, but I have a comment. The UI here looks more like, I use demand tools for deduping records. And it's very small. That's like one of my biggest complaints. Like the grid is very like classic type. Why doesn't it look like more lightning, more where you have more white space and just a little bit like of information? It's very busy, the UI for me. I'm old, so.
Fair question. Fair question. That's something I've actually been advocating for internally here as well. So our UI is a little older. It does look a little older. Our company to date has driven a lot into the tech side and has been developed by very heavy core developers, but not by marketing at all. We actually just hired someone to lead a marketing team for us about a year ago, and we've been in business 10 years. So you will likely see changes to this UI within the next year or so, but I can't promise when. But that is an excellent comment. And I would agree with you. It needs a little bit more white space, make it easier to read.
Yeah, thank you. Especially for like admins, spend a lot of time, like doing so much work, and after like 6-7 hours, you just get so tired, and those like eyes get a lot of pressure, so you have to strain a lot.
Absolutely.
Thank
Very fair comment. And then tell me who was talking, so I would give you a couple points for the drawing.
This was Lana.
Lana, okay. Thank you, Lana.
Thank you.
Now, I will tell you, it looks a lot bigger on my screen than it does on the screen share, because in this little bitty window, it is pretty small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just interesting. All the good tools, they're very small. Like demand tools, I love it. It makes my job so much easier. I can dedupe like a lot of the records. Like I can change scenarios, pick up. Like I'm really good with it. But everything that's good, it just seems like hard on my eyes.
I can see that. And lining's beautiful, but it's so fast. Yeah, I get that. All right. Is there any questions on this record selection stuff? If not, we have the trivia question, which actually I don't know the answer to. And that's, How many steps would this actually take you if you were doing it without something like this? Anyone want to wager a guess? Either how much time would it take or how many steps would it take?
All those levels, that'd be like, I don't know, like 50 steps. I don't know.
All right, Lana says 33. Who says 50?
Oh, Lindsay. Sorry.
Lindsay. All right, Lindsay gets a point. Lana gets a point. Let's see. I bet we're closer to 70, but let me take a look. We have.
I would have to Google VLOOKUP like 15 times probably. So that's
All right. We've got 71 levels here. Now, you see all these little red things? You can barely see them. They say no data in database. That's because it's my laptop and it's tiny. Now, I can look at this more. This is a map of everything I'm going to restore. Saying I'm going to restore case team member after I restore case in contact. Probably don't have to tell you why, but I need to have case in contact before I restore case team member. I can look at the order. I can look at what's dependent on what. I could actually take this and export it so that I could have that record somewhere else of how all this data connects.
Actually, quick question on that. So does the licensed user of this tool then have the capability to see the data in the database? Like if
yeah.
Okay. So is there
Absolutely.
So I have a variety of security questions, but like if the data itself is protected from the individual using the tool, right? Between Salesforce and both actually in this scenario, for the third-party database, AWS or whatever, like is there a way to prevent them from seeing it here?
Excellent question. So 2 answers. On the Salesforce side, any operation that I perform is, of course, subject to the credentials of the running user. So on my extract, if I can't view something, I can't pull it out of Salesforce. So limited to the same thing as the UI.
Okay.
On the database side, the database is always resident to our customers. So it lives in their own AWS environment or their own firewall. As a company, we have zero access. So we have no access, no visibility into any of our customer Salesforce data. Of course, on the control aspect, you can control who sees the data by, of course, controlling who has access to the database. We also have an application that is fairly new, just launched the marketing for it recently, that will actually let you take your data and apply rules similar to Shield, how it applies rules on the Salesforce side, apply that on the database side. So you can do regulatory segmentation and categorizing of your data, apply that down to the database so you can have field level encryption. And then you can set up database roles and your database roles control access. Probably a longer answer than you wanted.
But you would want somebody with the same data permissions at a general level to be utilizing your tool, right? Like we wouldn't want like just a normal developer like going and seeding their own sandbox, for example, if they have access to data that we wouldn't want them to generally see.
Exactly. So the typical process for that, there's a couple different ways to work around it. One is to apply Capstorm solution called Govern that will do that field level encryption, because then the developer won't have access to anything they shouldn't be able to see anyway. Another process that a lot of our customers have done is to use Restore. Whenever they do a refresh of their full copy sandbox, use Restore to go in and just mask the data. So set up a configuration that just does data masking, run that against the full copy sandbox, and then back up the full copy. So then the developers have a replica of production in a database, and you have zero risk because they'll connect to the full copy database as the database, and then they'll push that into their dev environments. I have a banking customer out of Atlanta doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, great question, JJ. Thank you. Keep it coming. You have the most points. All right. I could hit restore and say start, but I know from the questions you're asking, this team is, you're smart. You know Salesforce. You know that's not how reality works at Salesforce. You don't just get to hit start. Because I have all this automation stuff, I have triggers and validation and process builder and workflow and restricted pick lists, all kinds of things I have to disable before I can actually push data, especially say validation rules. Application will manage that for you. So I could go in and say, I want this validation rule not to run, or I could say, handle it for me. You're pushing cases. There's a validation rule on case, turn it off, turn it back on when you're done. And then I can go in and just say start. And it's going to do what it's supposed to do. Restore the data, reconnect all those relationships, essentially as if poor Justin was sitting in his room with 50 VLOOKUPs for the next, 5 or 6 weeks. And I estimate this will probably take about a minute. So I'll pause for a nice awkward silence unless anyone wants to say something.
In terms of turning off the validation, is it just turning it off so that this user can run, or is it turning it off for the entire org?
I wish I could say just the user can run, but it's global. And that's not a choice, unfortunately, we have. If you turn it off, we have to turn it off globally. Sandbox doesn't matter as much. Production, typically when you're doing a DR operation, just be careful when you run it. Because I don't think there's any, unless, now Nadina, you're the expert because you're on the architect side, but I don't think there's any way to actually turn off a validation rule person by person.
You can add like a filter and then give like a permission set or something, and then give that integration user access so they would bypass the validation rule, but other users would have it. That's the way I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's another nice way to do it other than adding like a filter and then or some criteria and then giving it to just the integration user.
Yeah. Then if I was doing this in your scenario, Ladina, I would use the integration user as my Salesforce credential, because then I would bypass it by nature of having that credential.
Right. That's how we do it on our org. So the integration user has more free range, but then regular users aren't impacted when we're doing things like this.
That's smart. I say that, but I don't know nearly as much about Salesforce as you do. So I'm going to applaud your intelligence because I didn't know that. All right. Now, under the hood, this is doing exactly what you would have to do. There's my old ID. There's my new ID. Every object I picked. Because what it's really doing is it's walking the graph. So it's walking the graph of standard objects, custom objects. If I picked any managed package data, rebuilding all that ERD that Salesforce has, and then restoring the data in the right order. If it has a circular relationship in there, like contact to account and account to contact, and it's a vicious circle, it'll pick a relationship, break it, restore, and then come back and patch the other ID. So it's connected again the way it should be. We can talk about metadata, if you want to talk about that, or we can talk some questions. What would you like to do?
Does it have any kind of thresholding around API usage? So if you're worried about going into API usage and you're not sure how much it's going to use for like a data restore, can you set up an API limit to stop or pause when it gets to a certain point so you can kind of go look at your org and make sure you're not going to hit your API limit?
On extraction, absolutely, because it's really common.
Okay.
Especially when you're doing attachments or something that's more hefty on your API usage, really common to set an API limit. Let me double check and then I'll tell you yes or no. Ooh, I'd say it's likely that there is, but I don't know where the setting is on a restore. I can go in and estimate how big it's going to be too. So I can go in and get an estimation before I get started. I don't have to just go straight to create and then deploy.
Okay.
I can create scan. When I scan, it's going to pull everything from my database that I picked into this tracker database. And instead of saying insert it, it'll say pending. And then I can check, is this actually what I want? How much space is it going to take? Because as you know, Dev Sandbox is a little limited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Justin, work around, but I think you stumped me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points to you. Nice. All right. Anything else? If not, I'll talk about metadata for a minute and then I'll take my bow and. No, all right. right, we'll do a quick talk on metadata, because this is one of my personal favorites here. All we've done so far is data. Metadata, of course, different beast, different API. Can restore a bunch of different types of metadata. I like to grab profile just because it's complex. We've got all these different properties of a profile. I might want to push some of it from org to org, or I might want to take a look at what's in my current backup and what's in my current Salesforce. Anytime that the extraction process runs, it's going to version my metadata changes so that I can actually do a side-by-side analysis of what did it look like yesterday and what does it look like now. Interesting? All right. Well, I am ready to do a drawing and give somebody $100 unless there's any questions. So you'll have to speak now or forever hold your peace, because as soon as we leave this screen, you're not able to enter the drawing. So anybody else have anything they want to add? No? Quiet. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for asking all these questions. It's been a ton of fun. If you want to give me a minute, I'm just going to put everybody's names in here once for being here. And then anytime you've asked a question, like JJ, I'm going to type his name in here like 10 times. So Nadina, Lindsay, team, if you want to continue on to your next thing, I'll just get everybody's names in, and then I'll tell you when I'm ready to hit the spin button.
It's good. Thank you.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. I hope you got something out of it. That's the most important thing.
Bring it back to the group. What was your favorite part?
I like the that you do the backup and the sandbox seeding. I guess I have one question. Not to put this in the drawing, but like with own backup, for instance, they have a sandbox seeding mechanism, but it's like a significant upcharge to the standard product. So I'm wondering, like, do you get everything for one price, or is it an upcharge to like add seeding or metadata backup, etc.?
I can answer that one. I'm going to pause from typing JJ's name in here 5, 6, 7 times. Make sure I got all the JJ's in, and then I'm going to answer your question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, I got him in. Sandbox seeding, the ability to in minimum seed one sandbox every month is included by default, because how else do you test your DR solution? If you can't practice testing and pushing data to a sandbox, you have no way to know that DR actually works when you need it. 1 comes by default. Some packages, 5 come by default. With others, 10 for my enterprise customers. Most of them use 10 or more. You can get as many as you want. You pay for them when you get more. Metadata extraction and metadata recovery included by default. Okay. In our mentality, how else do you do DR? If you don't have your metadata and you have a mess up in your org, like maybe someone here was impacted by that Pardot adventure that happened, was it 1.5 years, 2 years ago? Probably still scarred.
We shouldn't bring it up. We shouldn't bring it up.
Don't bring it up. Okay. All right. Well, recovery, if you had your version of metadata, it was about 5 clicks, because you just picked what you needed to push and pushed it. We did a quick, if you're impacted, here's what you do right now. Email after that happened. Awesome. If you have any questions, throw them at me while I'm typing in names. You might get some really weird answers. I'm almost done. All right, I am ready for a drawing. Everyone ready? This will be fun. Okay, so here's how this works. I'm gonna click a button that just has your first name in it. It's gonna pop up and say, "You're the winner." All I will need from you is an email address. It doesn't have to be your work one. I'm not going to mark it to you. I just need an email address, and I will email you tonight a $100 gift card to the Salesforce Swag Store, and you can buy whatever you want.
Sweet.
Spin and see who wins. Yeah. And Justin, you are the winner. All right, so Justin, if you want to drop your email in the chat, I will get you that gift card. Anytime. And I'm done. Unless you want me to talk more, I could talk a very long time, but you probably don't want to hear, especially about my kids. I mean, we could be here for hours.
No, I think we're good. I don't think we have any other giveaways tonight. Do we, Nadina?
No, we don't.
Okay, so this is So that's good. If there's anything anyone else wants to like talk about or bring up, and like I said, ask any other questions either about this presentation or about anything else in the land of Salesforce, we can stay a few minutes and chat. But otherwise, that's me. Thanks for joining us. Oh, and actually, when we don't have our next, do we have something for November? Is that yet, Nadina?
It's in the works. We'll see how it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thanks. So keep an eye out. You'll get a email like you always do whenever we publish the next event. So.
Will you be announcing the date the process builder is going away at your next event? No. Too soon.
I think 2022, 2023, whatever.
24, 25, when workflows go away. No.
We'll see what actually happens. But you know what? Even though I use Process Builder for everything, I hate Process Builder. And I also think it's the worst. So I'm like, you know what? Force me to learn to use Flow and start using Flow, which I do think is a more efficient tool than Process Builder in terms of CPU and runtime and all these other kind of things, right? So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, they'll take Process Builder and workflows away on a Monday after you have a really good weekend. That's exactly when it'll happen.
And then I'm gonna I'm really sick. Oh, I'm sorry, gotta go.
It's okay. I think they'll be around for quite some time.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing.
Until the very last custom customer gets off of them, they'll be around.
What they're gonna do? They're gonna stop you from creating new ones, but that doesn't mean they're not it's gonna be a long time before they get rid of old ones, and not let you use them anymore. But
it'll be like S controls. S controls still exist. You just can't ever make them.
Yeah, when is Classic gonna go away?
Never.
2045?
I mean, we still have half of the setup menu is still in Classic.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope it doesn't go away. I still work.
You still have to go into Classic to find the trash bin. I had to do that the other day.
Are you being a dinosaur down there? Justin, you should have your Swag Store gift card. It's to they give you a little PDF thing whenever you buy one. So it's just a PDF. You can copy and paste the code off there. It's salesforceswagstore.com or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
If you have trouble with it, just let me know. I did have one they gave me a month ago that the code was bad. So I had to go back and say, not right. So if you have any trouble, just tell me. We'll get it fixed.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. I need better lighting in my office. It's dark in here.
All right. Well, I think I'll say thanks, everybody. And if anyone else has anything else, we will see you next time. And thank you very much, Rebecca, for presenting.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I know it's not, always great to have a sponsor at a dev group. So I really appreciate your trust in me, letting me come and talk to everybody.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
All right. Well, bye, everybody. I'm going to go chase some kids.
All right.
Have fun.
Bye.
Always. Bye.
Bye.